Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Catalina Gillies. Details are now coming to light about a massive lawsuit quietly filed against the city of Thunder Bay 4 years ago by a company controlled by Buchanan Sawmills. The statement of claim is seeking $31 million in damages related to the 2015 fire which destroyed the former Great West Timber sawmill. Jonathan Wilson reports.
The huge fire lit up the waterfront in June of 2015, and it took several days before it was completely put out. A fire marshal's investigation into the cause was never completed due to safety issues caused by an unwillingness by the property owners to carry out any demolition. Then last week, another big fire erupted at the derelict property, destroying the former planing mill. TBT News questioned city fire officials about whether the latest fire could have been prevented had the site been properly cleaned up after the 2015 blaze. And that's when the legal dispute dating back to 2017 was revealed. According to the statement of claim obtained by Dougal Media, the company claims the city improperly disconnected water to the fire hydrants and sprinklers on the property in 2011, which left the property highly vulnerable when the fire broke out in 2015. The company claims the lost buildings and equipment were worth $25 million, plus another $6 million for lost profits and punitive damages. The city's statement of defense claims it was Buchanan officials who requested the city terminate the water service in order to save money after the company failed to repair leaking and damaged water infrastructure. None of the claims have been proven in court. A date for the trial has not been set, and a lawyer for the company says the case is unlikely to be heard before 2023. Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
The designated truck route continues to frustrate Thunder Bay City Council as the controversial issue was up for debate again last night. Rather than sending administration back to the drawing board to create a third bylaw, council members will need to decide among themselves which side will change their stance in order for things to move forward. Corey Nordstrom explains.
Councillor Trevor Gertuga intended to speed up the creation of a new designated truck route bylaw at Monday's council meeting. Instead, administration informed council and the public that they have nowhere to go, as no opposing councillors requested changes when the last bylaw was struck down.
There's nothing in our tickle trunk that we could bring that's any different that would have any chances of success. So what we would bring in this report is procedure and advise you about your options when it comes to notices to rescind.
In order for the process to move forward, a councillor who either voted against the bylaw to implement the DTR or someone who voted to initially approve the truck route will have to change their mind.
So representing that bylaw again is an option.
It is, should council choose to rescind the previous decision on that you've made on the first presentation of that bylaw.
Who is eligible to rescind? The folks that supported the bylaw?
A member of council who voted in favor of a decision can bring forward a notice of motion.
That prompting an exchange between Bent's and at-large councillor Trevor Gertuga, who voted in opposite directions of the most recent truck route bylaw.
Councillor Gertuga, if you want to resolve this, you're one of the folks that can bring that forward.
Yeah, I'm not looking to rescind this. I never was.
The report will come to council in January. If there's an impasse, Bent's hopes they can find some common ground in order to fulfill the goal of the truck route, making Dawson roads safer.
It's time to work together towards a solution rather than trying to rehash this thing over and over again.
Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
In other council business, the city will also consider joining a local living wage campaign created by the Lakehead Social Planning Council. It would be a symbolic move as the city already pays its full-time employees above what is deemed the living wage. The LSPC has calculated an hourly rate of $16.30 to be able to support a family of 4 in the city, with 2 parents working full-time. Social planner Bonnie Krasowski says living wage employees have less turnovers and higher worker morale.
Campaign to show that they have advocacy to reduce and eliminate poverty. The city of Thunder Bay already pays their full-time permanent employees at least $16.30 an hour. It makes sense that they would hop on board.
Poverty costs $60 billion a year to our country. So when we say we have to invest dollars in a living wage, you're actually going to save dollars in the long run.
4 local businesses and organizations have already joined the campaign. Chris Owadi hopes that more will take the pledge if the city is on board. The second person to be sentenced in the beating death of 25-year-old Ashley Mckay in October of 2018 will remain in custody for 2 more years. 24-year-old Terrell Michon was originally charged with second-degree murder, but she later pleaded guilty to the lesser charge of manslaughter. Michon was sentenced today to 6.5 years, but with credit for time served, she'll be released in 2023. The homicide occurred at an apartment complex on Cumming Street. Mckay died after suffering 85 blunt force injuries in the beating carried out by 3 other people. Yesterday, 40-year-old Marlene Quandabins was sentenced to 8 years for manslaughter minus time served. The third accused, 27-year-old Darren Umbash, will be back in court later this month. A Fort William First Nation man has been arrested in connection with a shooting incident on Gore Street earlier this year. He is now back in police custody after he fled from police and cut off his court-ordered tracking device. 25-year-old Robert Ivan Bannon was free on bail when he became involved in a family dispute on Saturday night. When Anishinaabe police officers arrived, Bannon fled on foot and then cut off his ankle bracelet. The APS put out a public alert on Sunday. Last night, Bannon was rearrested by APS and the OPP and faces new charges, including breach of his court orders. The Thunder Bay Police Service is looking for a 3% increase to its operating budget next year. That was one of the items on the agenda for the Police Services Board this morning. The board is also planning to continue meeting with the Police Association to discuss their concerns surrounding inadequate resources and support. Alex Flood has the details.
Police Service is submitting its annual operating budget for City Council approval. The operating budget is coming in at almost $49 million, around $1.6 million more than 2021's financial blueprint. Senior government level grants brought the budget down from its initial estimate of $55 million. Some of those larger grants have not yet been confirmed, however, and Mayor Bill Morrow expressed concerns with this question mark.
Maybe as a board, we need to be cognizant of this and be looking to do some advocacy or letter writing as a group to support the chief and administration in terms of what we can do to ensure as best we're able that grant revenue remains at least neutral in terms of where it's at now, and doesn't go down significantly. So
I think we find ourselves not only here in Thunder Bay, but across the province, kind of at the mercy of the grants. And it's difficult because most services are just now doing their budgets, and we have very little information coming through the ministry in terms of renewals, amounts, and what we can anticipate.
Police board members also voiced their intentions to continue addressing the Police Association's concerns after a survey showed officers feel they aren't receiving sufficient resources and support from the police service. Chair Kristen Oliver says the board and the association have been meeting to discuss further steps of action, but member Georgianne Morisseau claims there's yet to be any resolution.
But it's clear that the association and their membership were still feeling that they weren't being listened to and that issues weren't being resolved and moved forward. So, to result in a public op-ed. So I think it's important that the leadership on both sides sit together and really have an in-depth discussion and then report back to the public.
66% of the Police Association's members have stated their current staffing levels have caused them community safety concerns, and a troubling 81% feel little to no support from senior level management, making the next meeting pivotal in improving these statistics. Alex Flood, TBT News.
There's good and bad news on the local COVID-19 front. The number of active cases in the Thunder Bay District has fallen to the lowest level in nearly 3 weeks. However, the Catholic Board announced last night that there's a case associated with St. Martin's School. All affected parents, guardians, and staff have been notified. The board says thorough cleaning and disinfecting is now underway. Overall, the health unit is reporting 1 new infection today in the Thunder Bay area. The exposure source is still unknown at this time. There are now 12 active cases, down from 18 yesterday. It's the smallest active caseload since October 28th. The district's vaccination rate continues to tick up. 1,775 shots were administered last week, including nearly 350 first doses. And for the first time, the health unit is reporting third dose numbers as well. More than 3,200 people have gotten the booster so far. And there are no new cases today coming from the Northwestern Health Unit. There are still 2 active cases over there. Ontario will soon allow pharmacies to conduct COVID-19 tests on symptomatic patients. Up until now, pharmacies had only been offering tests for asymptomatic people. It could begin as soon as this week. The program will be voluntary and open to any pharmacy in the province. Premier Doug Ford says proper protocols will be in place to ensure there's no exposure to the virus in those pharmacies.
When you walk in, first of all, anyone walking into the stores, we still have a masking policy. They're gonna have dedicated lines going into the pharmacy, but we're gonna throw everything we can at it. And I think the pharmacies were one of the saviors when it came to making sure that we got people vaccinated. They played such a major part in it. The independent pharmacies and the other big brand pharmacies. So I have confidence they'll do a fine job.
It's been over 2 years since Thunder Bay's biggest music festival was held, and it's still unclear whether or not the popular Blues Fest will return next year, or if local concert lovers will have to wait until 2023 or beyond. The festival last graced the waterfront in 2019 when Canadian rock legend Bryan Adams headlined in front of a sold-out crowd. Auditorium General Manager Bob Halverson says he'd love to see the Blues Festival return, but there's concern all around about lingering.
Artists are reluctant to commit. We're reluctant to commit because of the ongoing pandemic and social distancing protocols, other COVID protocols that may be in place or may not be in place. The Blues Fest has and will continue to be a signature event for the auditorium. It brought a tremendous amount of talent to Thunder Bay in a very short period of time. It's one event that we loved putting on, and I know, people in Thunder Bay really liked it. And it's something we want to bring back, something that needs to come back. We just don't know if this is the right time or if it's going to happen for next year.
With the conditions getting colder by the day, the Shelter House kicked off their Gift of Warmth campaign to assist those in the community experiencing homelessness. The goal this year is to raise $200,000 to help support the services offered by the Shelter House to those in need. Besides monetary donations, the shelter is also welcoming volunteers to assist in the kitchen or donations of winter clothing such as jackets, hats, and gloves. Shelter officials say any and all help is greatly appreciated to help protect the less fortunate from those winter conditions.
Because we do provide shelter for people, and our winters are really harsh here, and people suffer in the elements. So we try to take some of that suffering away by providing a warm space, a warm meal, and some warm clothing.
We also will be launching our 24 Days of Giving in the next coming week. So there is a list of 24 items that we are really in need of, and we encourage all individuals and workplaces to take part in that if they can.
To get involved in the Gift of Warmth campaign, you can visit the Shelter House's website. Well, Fiona, was